Hey, everybody, this is Poiab from Your Own Pathway, where I empower you to forge your own path and to own it. So, welcome to another episode. I hope you all are doing well and taking care of yourself. If you are impacted by the fires or have any family members that are impacted by the fires in LA, um, please know that my thoughts and prayers are with you and your family. I do have a few friends that do live out there too. So, checking in with them and just ensuring that they are okay. Sometimes that's all that they need is for you to check in to make sure that they're okay. So, again, happy January. We are in the second week of January already. And I know that a lot of us are, at least I am, still very much recovering from the holidays because we had like Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, 3 holidays within a month, and that's a lot of holidays right there. And so January is often the month of reflections and thinking about how we want our new year to be and how we want to be intentional. So one of the episodes that I wanted to do today, as you can see, the title of my episode today is called Consequences of Parentification. And I wanted to do this episode because after the holidays, a lot of us kind of reflect on relationships, whether that be family, our romantic, our friendships, even our jobs, and how that's impacting us and if we're getting what we need from those relationships. And so, one of the things about parenting, okay, so I wanted to talk about the consequences of parentification because this has long lasting impacts on people who are impacted by this. And so, as a mental health therapist, I would say most of my clients are millennials and Gen Zs. And of course, the topic of relationships come up, and more often than not, besides their romantic relationships, a lot of people come to therapy because of their upbringing and dealing with family. And in therapy, we always joke that people come to therapy so that they know how to deal with the people that won't go to therapy. And so a lot of times with millennials and Gen Zs, they're the ones coming to therapy to learn how to cope or how to deal with their parents who won't go to therapy. And as I work with these clients, oftentimes there is a long history of parentification. And so I wanted to focus this episode on the consequences of parentification. And one of the things that I want to do first, or a second thing, is talk about situations where there are cases of parentification. But first of all, for those who don't know or who's asking, what does being parentified or what is parentification even about? So today I am fancy, and so I decided to create a Word document to walk us through this, to walk all of you and through this. So I created a Word document. So bear with me while I do a presentation here. So we're getting fancy today. Um, Share screen, being parentified. So, what is parentification? And so, in the simplest term, parentification or being parentified is when a child takes on the role of a parent within the family dynamic, often at a young age. And the child often takes on the emotional, the psychological, and the financial responsibilities of the adult. And besides the adult, sometimes the child or children will also be, the child will be a parent not only for their parents, but for the younger siblings and caregiving. So I am going to talk about all of this in a little bit here. So I'm going to stop sharing here and bring it back here. So, parentification has a lot of impacts, and the consequences of parentification are lifelong. And again, as a therapist, a lot of my clients are coming to therapy to talk about the consequences of being parentified by their parents and how it impacts them. And oftentimes, it's usually after the holidays or some big event that they really start thinking about the relationship with their parents. And I thought, you know what? What better way or what better time to talk about the consequences of parentification than in January when all the holidays are done and people are thinking, can I do this another year? What is the purpose of doing this? Do I have the energy? What kind of boundaries do I need to set with my parents? Or are boundaries enough for me at this point? And so we explore a lot about the relationship that the clients or have with their parents and the parentification. And a lot of times, parentification, again, has long term effects on people. And I'm going to talk more about that towards the end of the episode here. So, I, goodness. So, let's talk about this. So, we talked about what parentification means. And so, to have a better understanding of what parentification is, or situations that are considered parentified. So, let me get back to my Google Doc document here. And so, here are situations in which a child is parentified. And so let's go through this. So, one of the first ones that comes to mind when there is parentification is when there is financial hardship or there's poverty. And a family facing economic stress might rely on a child to contribute financially to care for the siblings or manage household tasks. I saw this a lot. An example is this, like when parents work two different shifts and rely on the oldest child or one of the children to do the caregiving, attend young siblings events, conferences, or any event that they're not there and have to act as the parent. Um, in other circumstances, in other countries, when you see the child having to give up going to school so that they can go work and to support the family, that's parentification. That is poverty right there. We see a lot of children who grew up in poverty or in other countries or even here in our own country. We see that. Yes, they're going to school, but right after school, they're going to work, or before school, they're working, or in the summers, they are working to provide for their family or for themselves because their family does not have the financial resources to provide or give them what is needed. So that's poverty or financial hardship right there. A second scenario or situation where parentification occurs is substance abuse. And this occurs when a parent is struggling with addiction that may neglect their responsibilities, leaving a child or children to manage household tasks or care for younger siblings. So, when I worked in as a therapist doing community mental health, I often work with parents whose children were in the system and had been taken away from by CPS, Child Protective Services. And oftentimes, it wasn't actually the physical abuse that was occurring, it was more of the substance abuse that led the parent to neglect their child or children that caused Child Protective Services to take away their children. And so in these scenarios, oftentimes it's like the school or someone or um some other place that is calling to report on the parent, or we're calling to report and say, hey, we haven't seen the child come to school in like a week or two, or the child is coming and they don't have clean clothes. Their basic needs are not being met. They're not getting their medications. They're not doing their homework. The parent or parents are neglecting them. And more often than not, one or both parents are using substance use, or substance abuse. And so we see often that the oldest child is taking on the role of taking care of the younger siblings. They are ensuring that the child or that their younger siblings are going to school. They're trying to feed the child, ensuring that, their younger siblings is doing their homework. And so substance abuse also has lifelong effects on people. And many of my clients grew up in households where mother or father abused alcohol, and there's a lot of trauma in that where parents stay stagnant. Even though the client is now an adult, the parent still acts like they're like a 20, 30-year-old who never grew up. And it gets really exhausting when substance abuse occurs, especially with a lot of the trauma and there's neglect. And so my clients usually feel that they are the parent parenting that parent who had substance use. So substance use is number two for situations when there is parentification. Number three, it kind of goes with like substance abuse. Often when there's substance abuse, sometimes you see physical abuse. And this happens when the oldest child or when the child may feel the need to protect the parent that is being physically abused and need to protect the younger siblings, and they take on the protector role. In situations where I worked with clients who witnessed a lot of the physical abuse, more often than not, it was often their father or some male figure or mom's boyfriend that was doing the physical abuse to mom and the rest of the kids. And in situations when the abuse got so too much, where the client felt like their mom was truly hurt or was like very hurt, or like they were being like strangled or something very terrifying, very traumatic. Sometimes a child will call law enforcement. Law enforcement will get there and question the child, and the child would be encouraged to lie by both parents or the abuser and the mother and say, you know what, you didn't see anything, retract what you said, you didn't see anything. And so oftentimes when that happens, they're trying to guilt the child to say, you didn't see anything. It's because of you that dad or whoever is in jail. If you had not called, this would not have happened. So there's a lot of guilt in being parentified when there is a situation of physical abuse, because not only does a child feel like they have to protect the parent, they're also protecting their. Okay, moving on here. I had to stop and get some water here because my throat is so dry. And so let's get going. So the next one, we talked about physical abuse. And after physical abuse, if divorce or separation occurs, this is in the absence of one of the parent, the child might feel the need to fill the gap, often supporting the custodial parent emotionally, taking on adult like roles in the household. And so in my clients, I saw this where usually mom has full custody or main custody of the children. And so mom is working one job, two jobs, doing everything. And so often it's the oldest child who has to take on the role of mom, or if the son is the oldest child, they take on the role of the protector, often taking the role of the father figure, protecting mom and the rest of the family. Or if it's an older sister, they take on the role of mom, ensuring that all the siblings have everything that they need, doing the cooking, the cleaning, doing attending like sports games, attending like concerts, or going to, again, sometimes going to conferences. If mom, I'm gonna say mom, because usually the clients were left with mom since mom had full custody of the children. So mom is busy working, mom is exhausted, and so if it's a daughter, daughter takes on the mom role. If it's a son, son takes on the dad role. And even at times, if there's a lack of boundaries, there's a lot of family enmeshment. So meaning that sometimes mom would even try to make oldest son fill in the role of a husband. So lack of boundaries, lack of enmeshment, where there's a lot of roles that are a little bit too close and the roles are not defined. So divorce and separation definitely causes parentification also. So, next on the list is when a parent is ill or has a disability, and when a parent may be physically or mentally unable to fulfill the role, requiring the child to step in as a caregiver for emotional support. So, as a social worker and as a therapist who worked with people with mental health, I saw people who had mental health and whose parents also had mental health. So a lot of mental health that was passed down from generation to generation. And so when a parent is physically or developmentally or mentally unable to care for themselves, they're not going to be able to care for their children. And so as a result, the children has to care for their parent. And for anybody who has ever been a caregiver, being a caregiver is exhausting. It is emotionally draining work, and at times it's also physical work if there is a physical limitation or disability for that parent or for anyone. And so imagine a child having to take on the role of a caregiver for a parent who is not physically, mentally, or physically, mentally, they're not able to care for themselves. And so that creates parentification where the child has to take on the caregiver role. And oftentimes, they're the ones completing all the paperwork, they're the ones arranging the doctor appointments, they're the ones doing the communication, they're the ones doing the um, plan of care. And that's a lot of work to put on a child. And so, being parentified, that's a situation being parentified where it has long term effects for the child who was parentified and caring for a loved one who was not able to care for themselves. Um, the next one is immigrant or refugee families. And in immigrant families or refugee families, children may take on the role of language and culture translators, navigating systems like schools, healthcare, or government services on the behalf of their parents. And whoever is watching this who are child of immigrants, child of refugees, you know what I'm talking about. And even me as a second generation child of immigrants, so I was born here in America. A lot of times my parents did not understand the paperwork that needed to be completed for school lunch or for permission slips for field trips. And now, especially, my parents don't know how to complete their Medicare paperwork. They don't know how to complete paperwork related to their health care. And even though we did a lot of that as young children, having to explain to them what they needed to do, it was literally us saying, okay, this is what it means. This is what it means. Okay, I will complete all of this and you just sign here. And so that creates, again, parentification, where when you come to a new country, you don't know anything. And then your children oftentimes go to school young, so they understand the language, they are able to assimilate to the culture. And so they have a better understanding of the systems. And the parents rely on their children to help in completing and understanding and navigating the system. And so immigrant and refugee families definitely creates parentification. Next one is absent parents physically or emotionally, and this can include military deployments, having a parent being incarcerated, or being emotionally unavailable due to work or other priorities that can result in children stepping up as surrogate caregivers. Um, when I think of this, I think of generational trauma where there's generation after generation of a generation of a parent being absent or a parent originally being there and then because of some circumstance one of the parents is no longer there where generation after generation the dysfunction, and I don't like to use that word. We've been taught not to use the word dysfunction in social work and therapy. And so when when the stability is not there, I should say, when the stability in the foundations is not there, that causes parentification for that child who is born because of that instability. And so, last one I thought about this. I actually put this one as my last one. I thought about it right at the end is gender roles. Is when putting the emotional responsibilities on the girls, giving all the resources to the boys. And there's a lot going on in the world right now where we're seeing a lot of that, like with the male loneliness and women are going to school, women are accomplishing great things because at a young age, girls had so much more expectations. Girls were expected to be emotionally available, girls were expected to do things around the home, while the boys, often more than not, were not given that expectation. I know that in certain cultures around the world, all the resources are given to the son and not the daughter because the thinking is okay, the daughter is going to go off and get married. So why would we invest all of our investment into her when she's just going to leave? And so we're going to put all our love, all our investment, all of our time, all of our energy into our son or sons because they're going to be here to help the parents. And so when you look around the world or when you see around the world, that's why a lot of young girls or girls do not have the opportunity to go to school, while the boys get the opportunity to go to school because of the gender roles right there. I know that growing up, I faced a lot of gender roles too. And I was expected to do a lot more than my brothers because my mother, anytime I questioned her why I had to do something when I was a child, her response would be, because you're a girl. And I said, nope, nope, that's not going to work with me. So you have to give me a better reason on why I have to do certain chores. You have to give me a better reason than saying because I'm a girl. Like you have to come up with a better reason. That does not work with me. And so gender roles causes parentification. And so now that we've gone through all of this, what is being parentified and what are the consequences of being parentified? And so I wanted to focus on okay, what are the positive outcomes? Now, there's always a positive and there's always a negative. So let's focus on the positive first. So, positive cases, in some cases, being parentified can enhance resilience, it can help with independence, and it can create empathy. The negative is that it can create rigidity, anxiety, depression, difficulty setting boundaries, the need for perfectionism, relationship challenges, and burnout. So, reading that, does that sound like any of you? Did this hit hard? Because I bet it did. And so, when you are parentified as a child and you're an adult, it's hard to let go of those traits that you had to develop as a kid because you had to survive. And what it also creates is that it creates anger and resentment and sometimes even jealousy from the child or the children that were parentified. What I also see in my clients is that the ones that were parentified were often angry at the parent or the parents because the younger siblings got the best of their parent. They got to be a parent, like their younger siblings got to have a parent, while the child or the children that were parentified did not get to be a child and they had to be an adult. And so there's a lot of, again, anger and resentment towards the parents for not being emotionally, psychologically ready to be a parent. And because of that, the child that was parentified would say, why do they get the best of you while I got the worst of you? And the parent will be like, well, we were just trying our best. We didn't know what we were doing. You were like a child, an error child. But because we parentified you, didn't say that, but basically because they were parentified, the child that was parentified, they'd be like, we made you so strong. We made you who you were or who you are today. You should be grateful that we made you who you are, because you are this amazing person. You're so resilient. You don't need any help because you're so strong. And we have to help your younger siblings because they're not as strong as you. And so when they hear that, the child that was parentified was like, no, no, I should not have had to take that responsibility. And you know what? That is right. That is right. That child should not have been parentified. And unfortunately, parentification, again, has long term effects. There's a lot of unhealed wounds and traumas when that child who was parentified has not worked on those unhealed wounds, unhealed traumas. And that could spill into their relationships with other people and within themselves. So, those are the consequences of being parentified. And so, for anyone who is watching this, if you were parentified, please put in the comments below on how being parentified has impacted you and how is your relationship with your parents or parent as of now. And so, moving on, in my next episode, I'm going to talk more about how parentification can actually lead to no contact with a parent. And because of the consequences of parentification, the child who is parentified has to think and be like, is this relationship worth it? Will my parents ever change? Will they take accountability for what happened? Now, a lot of people will say, well, sometimes parents didn't know better. They did what they could and they did what they did what they could with what they had. And I would challenge and say, okay, that is very true. And yet, are they doing anything now to be better? What are they doing now to be better? And are they doing better? Do they want to be better? Or do they want to say, nope, it's not my fault. Nope, I didn't do anything wrong. Are they taking accountability for what they did? And I know this is a very complex issue. There's lots of things, and it's so hard to narrow down to one. And so, for me to talk about all of this in one episode and have it all be like, yep, this is a situation, and that's something that I'm unable to do because, again, every relationship, everyone is so different. And this is what I just wanted to talk about, the main points of what are the consequences of being parentified. So, that is all for today. And I hope you liked this episode. I hope you got educated on the consequences of being parentified, and what what that means for both the parent and for the child that was parentified. So, all right, everybody, that is the episode for today. Consequences of parentification, being parentified, and My next episode is actually going to continue on from this about the consequences of being parentified. And one of the things that I also work with clients a lot about on is when the child who is now adult that was parentified, if their parent or parents continue to not take accountability for their actions or do not want to be better or try to be better, what are the next steps to this relationship? And so my next episode is actually going to talk more about, is going no contact a trend or not? Now, I know this is a hot topic. I know a lot of people have thoughts, feelings about this, and it is an episode that I would like to do just to talk more about what I talk with when clients are considering going no contact with their parents. And so more to come on that. Stay tuned. For anybody who's new to my channel and likes the episode, please hit the like and subscribe button. I cannot talk today. Please hit the like and subscribe button. So I am losing my voice here. I'm gonna drink more water, and I will see you all next time. And again, this is Poiab from Your Own Pathway, where I empower you to forge your own path and to own it. And I will see you all next time. Take care.